what's going on, guys? So today we're talking about the best-selling cards under $5 or less. This is the Penny Stock Yu-Gi-Oh! Mark your watch. Trying to see if anything new has showed up. Joel and Lockbird from Tactical Masters. Another solid card. I think... Did we talk about this one last week? I don't think we ended up talking about this one. Because I know we bumped into Tactical Masters. This is another fantastic card. Comes up a lot. It doesn't come up as often as some other hand traps, but we see that sometimes with hand traps like Cypher Gear Gamma, Nibiru, Droll and Lockbird, where they're great in certain matchups, horrible in other matchups, and like kind of just okay in a lot of matchups, right? Like cards like DD Crow, Imperm, Ash, they might not be as powerful in some cases as Droll, because Droll could just end a turn. Joel could just say, discard this card, your opponent ends their turn, right? But it's not going to be as available, it's not going to be as readily usable as like an Effect Veiler, an Imperm, an Ash, even like a Ghost Bell, DD Crow, cards like that, right? So, but Droll and Lockbird at $3 is really solid. We look at other versions of this card. I don't even, okay, so it did make the maximum gold version go down a little bit. And the structure deck version come down a little bit, but this card's definitely going to go up in value. It's the #1 best-selling card under $5. It's not really, I'm not really saying a hot take here if I say that this version of Troll Lockbird is going to be pretty expensive soon. It's been a very consistently good hand trap since the dawn of its existence. Okay, I thought we looked at this card last week too. Sharon's still chilling. Draco Utopian Aura still chilling. It's kind of calmed down. Instant Contact. It says it's $5, but it's still here. Gigantic Sprite. Curious. Sigma. A Pendulum card. Okie dokie. Pendulum effect. You may face special card in your monster zone in its same column. Wait, you can special summon this card to your main monster zone in its same column. Also, you cannot special summon this card for the rest of your deck, except for from the extra deck. Okay. Interesting. During your main phase, if you control this special summon card, you can add. Okay. It can move. So that's what this does, is like this deck moves around the cards. I feel like I say this every week at this point. Like I used to know what a lot of the decks do. I still know what a lot of decks do in Yu-Gi-Oh! Just not what every single deck ever does. So this definitely seems like the main searcher. I guess this is because what's interesting, the Vernus. Let me do that. The Vernus archetype that I looked up. I actually ended up buying those cards, and I've been messing around with the deck a little bit. I'm debating on either taking it to my locals or just playtesting it. With just like, you know, without going to locals, because sometimes when I go to locals, I get like a lot of really solid matchups against a lot of really solid players. Sometimes when I go to locals, it gets a little weird, it gets a little wonky, and bad testing is just as bad as no testing. So I probably will have a deck profile, Vernus deck profile sometime soon. They have collector's rares for $20 for this. I'm trying to see just like non-collector's rare. And what else do you run in this archetype? Okay, so this card, this is the most expensive card, and it's the only card that's over $1. It's a good amount of cards here. If we go over, this is where I get, and I know, I think I saw Team APS or something. I saw one of their videos talking about how like never buy decks from Yu-Gi-Oh! I think that's, or from eBay. Never buy Yu-Gi-Oh! Decks from eBay. I think that's a hugely incorrect advice. But I will say there are, you definitely want to pay attention to what you're buying, right? Because there are going to be some situations where sure cheap, $24, $27. That's for the collector's rare. Yeah, all these are really, really cheap, actually. But if we go to deck, or diesel, if we go to deck, Still pretty cheap, really cheap. So that one was for $35. Um, before you buy a deck on eBay, regardless of the deck, and make sure the value out of it, right? Just ask yourself, if it's more than $34, this art type, what is it? Valance, right? So I think this is actually one of the more expensive ones, which is insane that you can get an entire deck for $35. But if we go to, I never sort it this way, price highest first, it was $300 for what? Wait, serious? Okay, so like this is a good example of something not to pay this person, of course. Very quickly though, it does start to go to the $100. This is sort of like Pendulum Magician's Valance. This looks like just pure Valance collector. And if that's you, right, that's interesting too. If this card is taking good, the collector's rare should be worth something. But none of the collector's rares are under. That's not really what we're concerned of. This deck, though, in general, it does seem to be a very solid penny stock deck. And I've noticed, I will say this, eBay is not the best place, in my opinion, to get an entire deck. If you can find someone IRL in person so you can see the condition of the cards, you can talk to them face to face, and potentially you could barter and trade, like, I don't know. I have a playset of this card, and I have an extra playset of this card. If I give you extra playset of this card, will you give me just the entire archetype? You know what I mean? Just something like that. It's like a form of bartering, like trading $30 worth of cards for $30 worth of cards. But one $30 worth of cards is like two Nibiru's or like two Ash Blossoms. That's like $40 though. And then this archetype in and of itself barely is going to hit the $30, $40 mark, right? But if in person is not an option, I think eBay is better than TCG Player because a lot of times what ends up happening, what you pay in shipping doesn't end up making up for it, ends up making it not worth just getting it from TCG Player. Which is why I usually say get it from eBay, and I just want to get my 2 cents on that because I do feature eBay almost at least once a week on this channel because I know that um, there are a lot of decks in Yu-Gi-Oh! And for me at least, if I'm gonna pick up a deck like the Vernus Slimps deck or whatever that I just picked up, it was like $15. I got all the gadgets for like $2, and so if I'm gonna spend $20 and have a full Yu-Gi-Oh deck ready to rock and roll, that's what I'm talking about. Like that's what I want to do, right? Like if I'm not gonna have a tournament ready Yu-Gi-Oh deck, if it costs 20 or less, that's awesome. That's what I'm looking for. And Valance seems to fall in that category. But usually when I'm finding like deck cores, a deck core is a fantastic spot. eBay is a great spot to get deck cores, but deck cores, and even just decks in general, I go to eBay. But always make sure you check and double check and check and double check. And I'm always like, I'm on eBay. If I'm looking at buying something off of eBay, like a deck off eBay, I look at that deck for at least an hour, if not more. Sometimes I'll sleep on it, different things like that. Like you never want to buy something and then you just have like 15 common cards that are combined worth like $3, and you pay like $60 for this, something like that. As we continue forward, a point of the Red Lords is still doing its thing. These two hanging out here again. I was just talking about Sideframe Gear Gamma. So I think Sideframe Gear Gamma is actually a little bit more playable than Droll and Lockbird. I've never been the biggest fan of this. If you've watched any of my other videos, I think at least 4 or 5 times I've mentioned why I don't like Sideframe Gear Gamma. But this time I'm not going to say why. I think it's a solid investment, though. I don't really see it getting a reprint anytime soon. We just got the El Dorado version last year. It's not in the Megatins. I don't see where else they could possibly put it. Potentially a structure deck. It wouldn't be in the Dark World structure deck, though. Right? This card doesn't really make a lot of sense in the Dark World structure deck. Like a DD Crow, Skullmeister, a Dark Hand Trap, potentially. Because ever since Ash Blossom and Joyous Springs, we have seen some solid reprints and structure decks. I don't think Gamma is going to be one of them, though. Hey, we were just talking about this card. Vernus Slimps of the Flourishing Hills. Let's just take a look at this real quick. See how the little buddy's doing. It's climbing. I think the first time we featured this card probably was like in this area, and it's still climbing. It's recently, as of today, it has multiple ones being sold at $2, $2.40, $1.38. Near mint first ed, the cheapest near mint first ed right now is $1.72, and it's one available. One available, one available. You have 5 available here at $2.49. So it seems like this is starting to climb up. The rest of the Vernus stuff is cheap and probably will be cheap for a while. But it's just going to take some random combo, I feel like, for this. This is actually a really solid engine. It's not going to be as expensive as the Adventure engine, like ever, but it's an interesting little engine there. Little engine that could. Uh, is this? There's no way. Is that the only alternate art Stratos? That is. I like Ultimate Arts, but the difference is though with Stratos, Stratos just has so many printings that I don't know is the alternate art really that rare, right? Because we look at the ultimate rare from an OTS pack, that's gonna be super rare, right? The Shonen Jump promo. This is one of the first Shonen Jump promos, if I'm remembering correctly. That's gonna be super. Another Shonen Jump promo, like that's going to be dual terminal. That's another super like old fashioned rare set where this the alternate art, I mean out of the 3, 6, 9, 12 different versions of Stratos, this is the only one that looks like this, right? But alternate arts can be kind of hit or miss. We do see in a lot of cases old-fashioned cards like this, like almost everybody's favorite version of Blue Eyes, Dark Magician, is the original version. They don't like the alternate arts. So I can see this card going up in value, but only because the archetype that it's in, like this is a fantastic card. You know what I mean? Like when archetypes have a card that summons and searches, it's called the Stratos of the deck. Like this is a fantastic card. And so there's no indication at all, even though this looks like a peak, there's no indication at all that this card has hit its peak. Um, I think it could still have room to go up even further. I mean, we just saw all the versions. Those were in order of highest to lowest, and that version we're just talking about, it's like the third lowest. I don't think all 12 versions of Stratos would be over $5, but right now the cheapest versions from Legendary Collections 2, and they're sitting at about $4. So if you don't have it, get your Stratos now. I don't think it's gonna be like off to the moon. Every Stratos is worth $20, but we could be in a world where every version of Stratos is at least $5. It's just that good of a card, and it's in a very fun deck. You can do a lot of different things with heroes. I posted a video about how to beat heroes, and I remember I said at the start of the video, this is probably going to be a longer video because there's just so many different things that heroes can do, and it was the longest how to beat video that I ever made, but I got a lot of positive responses from that, so I appreciate you guys for that. Um, and that's just the thing. When it comes to heroes, it really does do a whole lot. This card, I know we talked about it last week, and we talked about it a lot. It does seem like the ban list is affecting this card's value, which could be huge. But look at just the last month, how polarizing it's been. It's been as low as $3.12 and as high as $3.87. And I know an 80-cent fluctuation doesn't seem like a lot, but when we're talking about penny stocks, when we're talking about $4 cards, 80 cents is a lot, right? I mean, the rate, 80 cents are not the greatest at percentages, but I think it's almost like a quarter of its value, or like it raised like a third of its value, somewhere in between there, right? It's like 30% more expensive here, and then it dipped. Like this was August 27th. 4 days later, it lost like 70 cents, and at $3.87, that's a huge dip, and now it's back up to 360. If this card doesn't get hit on the ban list, all versions are going to go to the moon. This was once a $10 card. Let me see if how long ago it was. Yeah, okay, so like $8, $9 card. Will it probably get hit on the ban list? Yes. It probably will go to 1, or it'll just get banned. But if it doesn't, This is your almost. I hate to. I don't love the word lottery ticket, but this is almost like your lottery ticket, right? Because we don't know when the ban list is coming either, right? And that's the thing. Like you could play a Mystic Mine deck at a regional, get your top, it gets hit by the ban list, you're cool. You can play a Mystic Mine deck, you don't get your top, everybody hates you, but the card doesn't get hit by the ban list, and you just make money, right? So there are kind of a lot of routes you can have with the winning with Mystic Mine. I don't know if I personally will get it though. I've been thinking about it, right? That's why I'm talking about it. And that's the thing I wanted to mention too. In most cases, or excuse me, in all cases, whenever I'm talking about a card, I'm giving my own personal opinion on it, right? And I firmly believe that regardless of who you're watching, right? I always make references like Master Swag King, House of Champs, MCole 40, whoever else does market watches too. I think MST.TV does market watches too. There's other people too, a lot of other people. Go with your gut first, right? If you buy a card because I said to buy a card, if you don't buy a card because I said don't buy a card, and it ends up being wrong, but your gut was telling to go against me, you're gonna regret that. There's no point in doing that. It's your money. Spend it how you decide to, right? Um, MCO40 just made a video talking about how Yu-Gi-Oh is relatively not that expensive. We see a lot of hand traps are very expensive, which is why I was really excited about like the Droll and Lock reprint, Cosmic Cyclone, Anti-Spell got reprinted, different things like that. Dark Ruler No More getting a reprint was huge. But MCO40 also mentioned how some of the sets, some like Sprite for example, is like a $300-$400 deck. And yeah, for some people, $300-$400 just drop in a bucket, drop in a hat. But for others, $300-$400, that's a lot. So spend how you feel comfortable, always, regardless of how I feel, right? Because I probably will buy a playset of Mystic Mine, but I'm not 100% sold on it just quite yet, but I probably will. You might have seen it in the Vernus deck profile. Um, this is pretty. We've seen these three here for a while now. Is this card calming down? Is that what I see? I doubt it. Mathmech's not going anywhere. Oh, Ignister's not going anywhere. It is kind of calming down though. So this could be this looks like a buy the dip situation in my opinion. And what I mean by that is it's dipping and it's gonna go back up. You know how we just saw, what was it? Mystic Mine, right? Or whatever card we are just looking at. I'm pretty sure it's Mystic Mine, where it was like 387 and then 319 like 4 days later. This is at that low spot. I don't think it maybe won't get back up to 459, but even if it gets to 386, right now it's at 270, right? So this could be a good time to have Sign of Mining. I don't see this card going anywhere, and I don't see Cyber's card decks going anywhere either. And we got another Valence. Okay, so this is kind of the archetype that people are looking at. Sun Avalon as well. But this is a different Exo Sister card. So is it right? Or is this the main Exo Sister card? No, this isn't, right? You're putting activates. No, this is. Oh, okay. I thought this was a different Exo Sister card. Is this the main Exo Sister card? No, she is. This is not. We must be Extra 7. This card can make a second attack. Once per turn, you can attach with a material, banish one card your opponent. Do they just all say that? Your opponent activates a card, you can return one extra deck monster you own attached to this card to your extra deck. Then you can special summon that monster from your extra deck by using this card you control. So the old switcheroo. The old bait and switch. Okay. So I think people are just trying to mess around with this card. No, this is what happened. So, I mean, yes, I think people are trying to mess around with this card because Exo Sisters wasn't as good as people thought it was going to be, right? Here it is right here. Does Exo Sisters suck? We talked about that last week. Well, I didn't talk about this article, but I talked about how savage of a headline that is. But I think a mixture of people who are messing around with this archetype and buying the dip, like I just said. Like, this is, I think, the lowest this card has ever been, ever. No, it was at 335 at one point, randomly. But for the most part, this is the lowest this card has ever been. And probably ever will be. So, technically still a penny stock. Probably won't be for long. And then Sun Avalon. I'm curious about this archetype because this archetype used to be a penny stock. And that's the funny thing, too. That is why I've been trying to feature certain different archetypes in certain different decks, like the Vernus or the Valance or different things like that. Because we look at Sun Avalon deck, it's now about 130 bucks. And you're thinking to yourself, well, that's still not too expensive. I could still get a full Avalon deck. Like I said when you see three cards like that ever, when I can see all, but the description will have full stack list, right? It's not bad. 1 for 1. Pot average, Monty Born called by pretty decent, right? But this one, I like buying these a lot better. That way I can just, not only do I see every single card that's in there, and 51 too is better than 40, so you can have extra cards in case you're missing. I think it's like a playset and everything. A lot of, the only reason I'm talking about this is because it's just simply due to the fact that, remember we were just looking at that type, and this website's got a lot of ads on it, so it's kind of starting to lag. But we were just looking at this archetype. And I was talking about how it could potentially, go up in value, or it's worth, not too much right now. That's why we do that, right? Because Sun Avalon was one of these archetypes at one point, where it was like maybe 20 or 40 bucks for the entire playset, and now, or for the entire core. Now it's like, $100 to $200, right? Which isn't a lot, but that amount of value being able to get, to gain, that could be huge. And I'm not saying Baylance or Vernus Lymph or Exosisters or whatever. I'm not saying any of those archetypes are going to go up humongously in value, but I am saying it is about at least once or twice a year that a randomly really cheap deck has some weird interaction that takes place that makes it a very expensive deck, right? But let me know what you guys think. What are the best selling cards that you're looking at under $5 or less? Let me know in the comments down below. Make sure you guys click that like button and that subscribe button for the channel. Most importantly of all, have a good day.